Robbie from the Geeq team. Here we are again with another episode about talks about Geeq with Stephanie So, the CEO of Geeq, of course, which everyone knows, especially in the community. So first question, what would you say is the greatest value of Geeq, and why should people pay attention to Geeq compared to any other blockchain or crypto projects in the space?
The answer is that Geeq is a zero trust blockchain. And that is going to be incredibly important, I think, because we are going into a world where we are not going to be able to trust what we see or what we hear from other sources. I think that we predicted the future accurately by thinking that trust in third parties for our data, trust in third parties to keep our transactions and our private information safe is going to fail. And we see that there's more attacks every day, there's breaches every day. Big companies have had big outages that have thrown off enormous enterprises, and some of those ripple effects aren't reported after the first few hours, you know. But trusting central networks to hold up is really not going to be an option. So the main thing about Geeq is it does not require you to trust.
Yeah.
Zero trust blockchain.
Zero trust, exactly, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Stephanie. So second question, Stephanie. So I'm going to ask you some basic questions about blockchain, because I know you like to choose your words carefully. And that's especially important here when different projects use the same words and it is hard to tell them apart.
Yeah. That is so true. It's very confusing if you're new to blockchain to figure out why you hear different things.
Yeah.
Why people say the same thing and yet you still have to study.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Like decentralization, you know?
Right.
I mean, I think it's something that a lot of people in this space are, understand, or at least trying to understand. And then I'm thinking as well, like, is Geeq decentralized? Is Geeq decentralized?
Geeq is decentralized, but I have to say what I mean by that, right? So Geeq is decentralized because we come at this from not trusting central parties. If you think that decentralized technology blockchain is going to be useful improvement over the kind of technology we have now, then you have to make it robust. You have to make it stand up, even if there are single points of failure or central points of failure. And that's really the way we think about it. We think decentralized means the users will still be protected, even if there is a central point of failure or control. And that's not the way other people talk about it at all. And what I want to say about that is that, sorry, Robbie, can I keep talking?
Go ahead.
What I want to say about that is because we don't trust centralized parties to have our best interests, they have their best interests at heart, right? And maybe us second. So because we don't trust centralization, we had to write the protocol a different way, which is that we also don't trust consensus. Because consensus is, it's an agreement to agree, right? And if you have a center of power and a group of nodes that are all following their own best interests and they all agree to agree, that's not really decentralized to my mind, because they can control what I see. And I don't want to depend on that. I don't think anybody who is a geek really wants to put the things that are most important to them in the hands of someone else. So, and you want to ask me about what other people think decentralized is?
Sure.
It's easier for me if I tell you the questions, right? There are other projects that claim that they're decentralized, and what they really mean sometimes is we have a lot of nodes. We have a lot of nodes. So we have thousands of nodes, tens of thousands of nodes. We claim they're on all the time, taking care of us. This can't be true. You can't assume that you have tens of thousands of nodes on it all the time. And there's enough that are honest. But I do think that is used elsewhere as a measure of decentralization. There are a lot of nodes. And they could be taken over, right? I mean, in the future anyway. So then you end up back at centralization. And there are a lot of other things, but I think that you shouldn't think that you have protection just because you have large numbers. Masses of people can be wrong, right? And so that's not protection in my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another question as well is, so like we've touched it before, that Geeq is an infrastructure project.
Yeah.
And it is the most secure layer 0, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What does that actually mean? What does Geeq mean by being a layer 0, and how does it differ by being a layer 1? I think you touched it already a little bit, but I think it might be good to have a bigger explanation about it.
Yeah, that was a serious decision because there weren't layer 0s really when we started. Everybody was a layer 1. There weren't layer 2s either. Right? So everybody was a layer 1. And the reason that Geeq is a layer 0, its fundamental infrastructure, is, again, it's about security and not trusting anybody. So layer 1s are all consensus driven, and I've told you about that, right? And let's assume that everything is good most of the time with layer 1s, so they keep going. And now let's assume there's a problem, right? The way that layer 1s will think about problems, and this happened to Bitcoin, it happened to Ethereum when it had to fork into Ethereum Classic, and is that if there is a disagreement in the protocol of a layer 1, they have to deal with the fact that there's this split that some people want this way and some people want that way. And so how do you resolve that? Well, you should have a security blanket. You should have a secure net, safety net underneath. And their safety nets, their layer 0, is what they call social consensus. In other words, the whole community, has a fight for a long time, and then they decide to split. You get Bitcoin Cash, you get.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you, and that's fine. I mean, I know there are people who are really passionate and loyal about those, and I think that choice is good, but it's not stable. Right. So you don't know today that that's not going to happen in 2 years to certain layer 1s. So we want to avoid that. And Geeq is a layer 0 in the sense that it doesn't depend on people having to vote or agree or make sure that something's right or be popular or any of those things, because it's, at the end of the day, it's pure math. And people don't like math necessarily, but what it does do is give you crystal clear answers, right?
Yeah.
1 or a 0, and we can tell the difference and we know which one should be the right way to go. And so that's why we're layer 0. We don't need to fall back on anything. We know it's secure.
Okay, great. Okay, next question. What do you mean by an infrastructure project?
Yeah, because there are a lot of infrastructure projects or claim to be infrastructure projects, right? I think what makes us an infrastructure project is that we are offering a protocol, a way to have assets and coins and transactions and NFTs, if you want to call them that, move from account to account. Geeq coins can go from chain to chain. And it's infrastructure instead of just a chain, because apps can be built on top, or other chains could use Geeq as other chains, L1s, L2s can use Geeq as an L0. So you can build on top. Maybe that's the easiest way to sum up infrastructure.
Yeah, you have an application and you have the infrastructure to build something for it, you know?
Yeah. And it's general infrastructure because we're not geared toward, we're not an app chain because it's not a specific protocol for a specific app, and that's all we do. So.
All right. So Geeq is a layer 0. And other layer 0s, they say they're interoperable, right?
Right.
Is Geeq interoperable?
Yes, Geeq is interoperable with itself. Okay. So, yeah. So let's just make a comparison. What do you think of interoperable, Robbie? What's interoperable to you?
You have one system which can connect to others, many other. Like, for example, you have a platform on one chain, but you can still connect to other networks.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
My quick summary about it.
Yeah. I think that's good. So Geeq is interoperable in the sense that we've already talked about the security we can offer. So many chains can use that and continue to do their connections and their bridges and so forth, but people will know from the L0, from our accounting, which can't be reversed, it's very exact, what the state of their accounts should be, right? And so if something goes wrong on a L2, there's some hack, somebody should take responsibility for that, because in your wallet that you started with this number. Yeah. And something goes wrong, well, it's not your fault. So we're interoperable in that sense that other chains can anchor to us. We're interoperable in the sense that many applications can build and talk to each other on Geeq. And we have multiple chains, and all of those are consistent in how they think about data. And so and also the token can go between chains. So in all those ways, we are interoperable for apps, Web2 kinds of apps that use blockchain between our chains and as an anchor for others.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, for today, I know there are many other areas where you and the team have made decisions to be different as being Geeq. So I'll just list a few, like quantum ready, demand driven, user centric, utility token, no smart contracts, data protections, identity based with privacy and security in mind, of course, and Web 2.5. Like, would you like to choose one of these to talk about to finish up for today?
Yes, I'd like to talk about a specific aspect of Geeq, because sometimes we have problems because we've made so many decisions about how to simplify what Geeq stands for. And what I would say is that All of the things you mentioned are because we're preparing for a world where trust is dead. And you've seen that starting, right?
Yeah. It's sad, but it's true.
Yeah. So if you come to blockchain as a technology that is trying to rescue, bring back ledgers of record, shared ledgers of record that have been validated with proof that people can understand, that's proof, and I can check it on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
If you come to blockchain with that goal in mind, then Geeq is very different in how it approaches security, because we didn't come here to burn the whole thing down. We didn't come here to say, oh, you know, we're crypto, we're going to take over the world, everything is going to crumble because we're so great, right? Or everybody has to go to Web3. We're not like that. We're not that kind of project. So what I would say is we want to help everyone be secure, whether it's in Web 2 or Web 3, and we find ourselves exactly at Web 2.5, which wasn't a term again. So, you know, as we go through time, people make up new terms and we say, oh yeah, that's a good description. And we're very fortunate to have Lun.
Mm-hmm.
And his background in software applications, his background for Quicken and QuickBooks and QuickBooks International, that he's already thinking ahead. He's used to thinking ahead for worldwide adoption. And he knows how to make a software stack really easy to use. And this time what he's doing is he's making a blockchain stack that's going to be really easy to use. And we've shown it off, right? We've shown off our application that connects to 2 chains, and yeah, it looks like a Web 2 app. It feels like a Web 2 app. You've got a little wallet. So that's Web 2.5, because we can bring along some applications. If they connect to Geeq, they get the best of the security of what Geeq brings, and sort of move them into Web 3.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thanks a lot, Stephanie, as well, for your replies, your answers, great answers. And I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you, Robbie.